Well, stranded residents of Polo Park, Philippi East, have begun the New Year destitute. One person has died and an estimated 1,000 more people were left homeless after a fire in the early hours of Sunday morning, of New Year's Day. In Masiphumelele, 3 people were killed after another fire on Saturday, and yet another was reported in Dunoon as well. So let's get to the latest on the situation in various parts of the Western Cape. Joining us this morning is Cape Town's Fire and Rescue Service spokesperson, Jermaine Carelse. Jermaine, thanks very much indeed for coming onto the story. Gosh, what an awful start to the new year for residents in several areas of Cape Town.
Yes, good morning to you, Michelle, and your viewers. Yes, the first incident actually happened on the 30th, and that was just before 12 the afternoon on Friday, and that was in the noon. About 106 structures were raised and 233 persons were displaced. Luckily, there were no fatalities or any injuries. But on the very next morning, on the 31st, we had the massive fire, where this was only 22 structures, but unfortunately or tragically, 3 people lost their lives.
Sure.
That was two adult males and 1 female. And then on New Year's morning, that was around 20 to 3 that our service was alerted to this structure site in Philippi, Polo Park. And the current total verified with DRM would be 247 structures and 760 persons displaced. And we had the single fatality, the adult female that died as a result of fatal burn wounds.
You gave us an update on all of the numbers in those 3 incidents, Jermaine. Thanks for that. But in the Masiphumelele fire, you talked about a number of homes razed to the ground there. How many people are we talking in that particular incident left homeless?
That was 22 structures that was raised, and I think over 40 persons that was displaced in the massive fire. It wasn't as worse as the one that we had previously a few weeks back.
So that still brings us to well over 1,000 people on the second day of the new year who are this morning homeless. Do you know anything about where these people have found shelter?
I think normally with the gift of the givers being there quite quickly to assist those in need, and then our city services with solid waste, disaster risk management and informal settlement management, taking the update, getting the numbers and engaging with the community leaders. Most of the families normally want to stay with relatives or they are housed in maybe the city walls if possible.
Jermaine, you've been working with Cape Town Fire and Rescue Service for some time now. Is this unusual, this spate of fires that we've seen in the space of 3 days?
Well, no, I've been in the service for over 20 years, and normally during this period, especially December up until January, we have these spate of fires. We had the other one in Easter as well, in Langa, where there's many structures. And a lot of the families obviously leave maybe to go to Eastern Cape or to other provinces, and their homes maybe are left alone. And it's festive season. Sometimes people are not as vigilant as they should be, or they don't react as quickly as possible. Because you can see with the result of the fatalities, it occurs between the hours of 12 and 4. Like the Masi one was 2 o'clock and the Polo Park was around 2, 3. At that time, people are fast asleep. They're unable to wake up. So that's when we normally get the fatalities.
Fast asleep or busy with New Year's celebrations? I mean, do you think that could have played a role?
Yeah, it could be, but when we deal with a fatality, we hand it over to the South African Police Service, which is obviously the leading agency that will lead the investigation as a result of those fatalities.
So what happens now, like in the days now after a fire like this, where residents have lost their homes? Do they inevitably go back to the site of where their homes were and try to rebuild?
Yes, we've encountered that even when we're busy with mopping up operations. Remember, we turn out to the fire, we contain and extinguish, and then we do mopping up operations. And whilst we're busy with that, we can see that people are already trying to salvage some of the parts of the structure and try to rebuild. And that's when DRM and disaster risk management, as well as informal settlement management, plays a major role, so that they can allocate space for these structures to be erected. Because what we find, the people are given a certain section, but due to space, these are being built up quite close to each other. We had the Dunoon fire where we had double-story informal structures. Hence the amount of structures that went up so quickly. And it's unfortunate that we as firefighters, we cannot come as close to the fire as possible. The space is very limited. And obviously the entry into these areas are sometimes blocked by vehicles or it's just a nightmare to just get there with these big fire engines.
Yeah. I mean, in your experience, Jermaine, are we making any kind of headway in terms of exactly what you've just outlined, the spatial planning of informal settlements, the things that put people even at more risk, living in such close quarters? When one structure does catch alight, it just makes it so much easier for that fire to spread throughout a large part of the informal settlement. Is there any headway, and I know this is not in your purview in terms of speaking on behalf of fire and rescue in Cape Town, but do you think that any progress is being made to try and address that?
Yes, I think there has been progress made in other areas as well. Remember, Fire and Rescue Service also has a fire education department where we go out to communities, vulnerable communities, where we see the stats, we can see where the most fires occur, at which times. So we send out our people, have informal discussions with them, and give them certain tools to assist them, as well as disaster risk management. They go out on weekends, hand out pamphlets, enforce certain things, where we can tell the people what to do, which number to call, so that we can mitigate these incidents. Is
there anything fire and rescue is doing differently insofar as fires at informal settlements are concerned? Any lessons that have been learnt that you take to fires that spring up now?
Yes, obviously we need the community, or whoever calls the fire service, to make that call immediately. We find that a lot of people still phone the 10111 number, which is the South African police number. So the sooner that people call the correct number, the sooner help will be available. Hence the reason that the city invested in the fire station there by Masiphumelele Fire Station. It's just around the corner from Masi, bringing the fire station closer to the most vulnerable communities. The one we have Guguletu, that's close to that informal settlements. We have Lands down the road, we have Casualties, and we've got Mfuleni. So we are coming so close to the community. So it's just that call that the members should make, and help will arrive as soon as possible.
Yeah. Masiphumelele, in particular, Jermaine, has been ravaged by, I mean, I'm not even sure how many fires have been in that community over the past, say, couple of years.
Yes, there has been fruitful engagement. After the last fire, there had engagement with fire services, with DRM, with the community leaders. Because what we find is that when we arrive on scene, it's always total chaos. The people want to take the fire hoses from the guys, and we are experienced firefighters that go to intensive year-long training, and we have this engagement with the people so that they don't interfere with the firefighters' work. We've been stoned, we've been stabbed, we've been gun-pointed. So there's a lot of things that we need to talk to the community so that we can do our work effectively.
Yeah, I mean, that's just unacceptable to be able to do your work effectively in that kind of context. As we wrap up our interview with you, Jermaine, it's the 2nd of January. We're sort of coming out of the festive season period. We're in the last few days of the festive season period now. How would you rate this festive season in terms of your busyness as Cape Town Fire and Rescue compared with previous years?
Oh, well, the numbers that I checked last night, from the 1st of December up until, I think, the 1st, we had about 3,200 emergency calls, and that includes our building fires, our trauma-related incidents, stabbing, assault, and then our formal and informals. We are up to just close to 190 informal structure fires that we've attended to, as well as about 170. So it looks more or less we've got fewer incidents this year than last year. But listen, the season is still long. We carry on up until April, and I think with the fire season, that everyone is always talking about the fire season. Fires don't only happen during this period; it happens throughout the year. We've had over almost 23,000 fire-related or incident emergency responses from the beginning of January up until December. So there's quite a significant amount of incidents that our city staff attend to on a daily basis.
Sure. So that's for 2022?
Yes, that's for 2022.
Wow.
Over almost 23,000 incidents, emergency incidents, that our city staff attend to.
Sure. Saving lives hour by hour. Jermaine Carelse, spokesperson for Cape Town Fire and Rescue Service, let me thank you for your time this morning. 23,000 incidents for 2022. And of course, Jermaine giving us an update there on the latest fire taking place in Philippi East. That was in the early hours of New Year's Day, but there is also that incident that happened on the 30th of December and the 31st as well. So over 1,000 people left homeless from those three incidents in Cape Town.